It's Todd's Odds with our sports betting expert, Todd Fuhrman, the former Caesars odds maker and host of Bet the Boards podcast. Todd, not sure either of us expected to still be talking about the Edmonton Oilers at this point, but here we are. They're going into Game 6 Friday night. They are favored in Game 6. They are, however, not favored to win the series. Florida's still favored to win the series. Are you a believer in Edmonton at this point, Todd?
I mean, look, Jay, you have to give the Oilers a ton of credit. It would have been easy for them to curl up and die going into Game 4 when it looked like all hope was lost. They end up having that offensive outburst. They dragged Florida into their home building, and to the Oilers' credit, they took advantage of some of the undisciplined play we saw from the Florida Panthers. They were able to capitalize early with that shorthanded goal. My issue with making a case for the Oilers to come all the way back and make history, erasing a 3-0 series deficit, is when you look at the 5-on-5 play in this series, it's still heavily tilted in Florida's favor. And I think the one concern you have as an Oilers fan coming home for Game 6 in a building that will no doubt be absolutely electric is number 19 on the other side started to wake up a little bit. And Matthew Tkachuk reminded us in Game 5, even in a losing effort, a lot more of the impact player that we saw for extended stretches of last year's postseason. I think Florida goes in with a Game 7 mentality and closes it out on visiting ice Friday night in Edmonton.
All right, we're going to keep this clip. We're going to play it all throughout the weekend. FanDuel has a great novelty prop bet right now, Todd, and I love this one. Who will either Sasha Barkov if Florida wins the Cup or Connor McDavid if Edmonton wins the Cup? Who will they hand the Cup off to first after they hoist the Cup? We'll look at the odds now, and it's pretty interesting. The debate is really, it's always whether it goes to the veteran or the second best player on the team. So for Florida, the best odds are Kyle Oposo. He's played over 1,000 games, but he was just acquired in March at the trade deadline. Doesn't even really seem like a Florida Panther. Leon Draisaitl is the favorite for Edmonton, and he's followed by the longest tenured Edmonton Oiler in Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who's gone through approximately 16 coaches over the course of his career. Todd, who do you like in this one?
You know, when I look at that market, Jay, I'll make a case for a player from both sides. And I'm not going to take the two favorites there with the Florida Panthers. I'll go down to Aaron Ekblad at a shade less than 5-1. This is a player that has endured quite a bit in Sunrise, joined a Panthers team that was somewhat irrelevant way back when, and has been a key cog in terms of getting this team to raise its overall level of play. You can see the difference that he makes being at full health this year compared to being a shell of himself in last year's Stanley Cup run. So I think Aaron Ekblad at a price just less than 5-1. And you mentioned it, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has been with the Oilers for what feels like an eternity. When you look at him, he still's got those boyish good looks, but he's going on, a decade of service as a member of this organization. So he would be the player that I would make a case for Edmonton. I think those guys make the most compelling argument. I'm just not buying into Kyle Okposo at such a short number for exactly the reason that you said. He hasn't been with the Florida Panthers all along, and he hardly had a cup of coffee in terms of the regular season performance.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense for me. I like your Ekblad pick much better. Finally, Todd, we showed it to everybody earlier on the show. Canada loses to Argentina at the opener of Copa America. They allow the 2 goals in the loss. They just couldn't finish it off against Argentina. Now you go on to face Peru, where Canada's actually a favorite, and then Chile, where they're an underdog. Do you like Canada's chances of advancing past the group?
It was such an interesting match tonight, Jay, because I think if you're Jesse March and you're anyone associated with Soccer Canada, you're at least encouraged by the performance that you saw in the first 45 minutes. Now, the problem for Canada that we've seen in 3 matches with March as their manager is that they haven't yet found a way to put the ball in the old onion bag. They were shut out in a 4-0 loss to the Netherlands. They drew 0-0 in the friendly against France and did have some chances, just weren't able to finish. And if you want to make a case for them to get out of the group, someone is going to have to raise their level of play, and they're going to need to be much more clinical in that final third. But to your point, I do think that they have 2 matchups with South American sides that are manageable for them, and with their price somewhat favorable coming into the tournament and not much of an adjustment after the 2-0 loss to Argentina, I think Canada makes an excellent candidate to get out of this particular group. But they're not going to be able to do it if they continue to put goose eggs on the board on a nightly basis.
The old onion bag, ironically, was my college nickname. Todd Fuhrman, as always, you're the best. Thanks, buddy. When we return, plenty more. This is SportsCenter with Jay Onrait, brought to you by Harman.